Hey guys, I hope everything's going well and you guys are staying safe and sane during coronavirus quarantine. So we're going to talk today about Dr. Heidegger's experiment, and this is probably one of my favorite short stories that Hawthorne writes, and I think it does a really good job illustrating his capacity for symbolism. Okay, because he uses a lot of symbolism in this short story in a very short span of time. But he also uses a lot of allegory through these characters. Okay, it's kind of rare to have a short story with so many characters, but Hawthorne does that very well in this short story. So obviously we have Dr. Heidegger himself. Okay, we have the four specimens, if you will. So Widow Weigerly, Colonel Killigrew, Mr. Gassion, Mr. Medbourne, and then we also have Sylvia Ward, who's not really a physical character. She's more supernatural and spiritual, right? And she's represented through the portrait. We also have this mysterious narrator, right? There is this pronoun used, I, okay, first person perspective throughout the short story, but we really don't know who I is, right? And I actually takes responsibility at one point of circulating these stories about Dr. Heidegger and like his failed attempts and stuff like that. So obviously Heidegger has this reputation of being a not so successful scientist, if you will. All right. So before we talk about these characters and how they're allegorical, let's look at the setting, because this plays a huge role in the short story and it's very Gothic literature-esque, right? So Minister's Black Veil, it's not as outspokenly Gothic literature. You really have to dig beneath the surface to find those elements. These are really blatant, especially in the setting. When we're first instructed what the setting looks like, the narrator tells us, right? It has cobwebs. There's a lot of this blackness, right? We see black folio, okay, also known as the magical book. There's that black ebony table. We've got the mirror that reflects the old souls of the people that were the failed experiments of Dr. Heidegger. We've got the skeleton in the closet, okay, which obviously has more than one meaning. Okay, obviously these four characters have skeletons in their closets, which is illustrated by their moral flaws. And then we've got Sylvia's portrait, and we learn about Sylvia and her demise when we see, when the portraits illustrated. So Sylvia Ward was supposed to be Heidegger's wife, okay, but the day before she died, she had some sort of, again, it's very vague and it's very ambiguous the way that the narrator describes her death, but she had some sort of reoccurring ailment. Maybe she suffered from anxiety, and Heidegger gave her these pills that ended up killing her the night before their wedding. So she is living still in this portrait, also through the memory of this rose, which we'll talk about in a moment too. And then we also have Hippocrates' head. So Hippocrates was a Greek, I don't want to say philosopher, but he is known to be the father of medicine. And then again, that's spawning back in the times of Plato, Aristotle, all of that. Greek philologist, okay? So it's kind of ironic that this father of medicine is watching over Dr. Heidegger, who's obviously not a father of medicine because he's accidentally killed his fiance and also obviously many other people that are being reflected in the mirror. So this is a huge setting. This back to the black folio, there is talk, right, rumor that it's magical. There's this story that is circulating that the cleaning lady accidentally picked up the book, and when she did, the skeleton in the closet shook and Sylvia tried to walk out of the portrait. Okay, Hippocrates basically tells her to leave it alone. So all these kind of weird supernatural things happen when that book is moved and it's not by Heidegger. So anyway, his four specimens, as he calls them, come into his study. And we also learn a little bit about their past, right? So Widow Weigerly, so we're coming back to this idea of the 7 deadly sins, right? Widow Weigerly, she's going to be or represent lust, okay? She was a favorite of all the boys, right? Couldn't commit, was beautiful, all of these things. Then we have Colonel Killigrew. who would be guilty of gluttony. Okay, he's become an alcoholic. All right, he now has gout. He's got a limp. Okay, he's kind of a hot mess. And then we have Mr. Gascoigne. I think that's how you say it. Okay, and he used to be this high-powered politician, so pride would probably be his flaw. And then we have Mr. Medborn, who's a merchant. Okay, and his fall would probably be greed. Okay, he always wanted more. So we see that these sins kind of illustrated, okay, by these characters, which would make them allegorical if they're representing those sins. And one of the things that the narrator notes is that they're kind of wishing for their death already. Okay, they're at this old age. Okay, they are suffering the consequences of their actions. All right, you know, Medborn's penniless now. Gascoigne has no power. Wycherly's lost her beauty. Even at the end, when she doesn't have the Fountain of Youth water anymore, she says that she just wishes a coffin would fall over her face. Okay, this is how vain this chick is. So there's a lot of history with these characters. So when Heidegger invites them to be these specimens, they don't really take him very seriously because they're well aware of his many failed attempts at his experiments. And they just think that this is going to be another flop, all right? And he comes out and he's got this water and he puts it on the black table, okay, with 3 legs. And he starts to tell them about this water coming from the Fountain of Youth. And again, even Wycherly says that Ponce never found the Fountain of Youth, and Heidegger agrees. But Heidegger tells her that he got the water from this acquaintance, right? So once again, we don't know who the acquaintance is. Maybe the acquaintance is the narrator. Just throwing that out there. But regardless, these 4 people are a little bit skeptical about this experiment. So they're kind of watching Heidegger, kind of like, whatever, it's going to be another flop. And he takes this rose out of the black folio. And the rose is wilted, right? It's decrepit, okay, kind of like our 4 peeps over here. But he takes it out and he puts it in the water and it blooms. And he tells them that the rose was from Sylvia, right? That Sylvia had given him this rose to wear on their wedding day, the night before the wedding. Okay, so we see this hint of nostalgia with the rose. And when he's telling this story, we as readers think that maybe he wants to go back to that time, okay? That maybe he is going to use this Fountain of Youth to go back, okay? But instead, when he broaches this experiment to his 4 comrades, he tells them that he's not going to participate, okay, that he had already had such a hard time aging. He doesn't want to have to go back in time and then age again, all right? And these 4 don't really heed his advice about any of this. And they're kind of like, okay, yeah, sure, we'll drink this water, why not? And they're a little bit, their interest is piqued, okay, by the rose blossoming. So before they have this water, one of the things that Heidegger challenges them to do, he says, just keep in mind the mistakes you made in your past. So maybe you can learn from those mistakes and be a moral compass for generations behind you. Okay, try to illustrate strong values and so on and so forth. Okay, and they really don't pay any attention to this at all. Okay, even though Heidegger elicits this challenge. And the first thing they say as soon as they drink the water is they do start to notice these changes and they say, I'm young, I'm young, I'm young. Okay, so they're so excited about being young. And at one point they look over and Heidegger is sitting in this chair watching almost as if he's God, right? And there's this awe and respect towards Heidegger that they hadn't had before, okay? But then the younger they get, the less awestruck and the less respectful they become of Heidegger. Okay, then they start to imitate him, right? They imitate him sitting in the chair. They imitate the little limp that he has. Widow Wycherly invites him to dance and then kind of laughs in his face. So we see kind of this digression of their personality, which is a lot to say since there really wasn't a lot to begin with anyways. So as they are drinking this water, and Heidegger's observing, they start to fall into their old ways, right? Killigrew is looking for the booze. We've got Medborn who's plotting out how he's going to make all this money. We've got Gascoigne thinking about his next campaign. Okay, Widow Wycherley is looking at herself in the mirror and being all coquettish. All right, and then the other thing that tied these three men together was their mutual crush on Widow Wycherley. They had all been Wycherley's lovers at one point. And now that they're youthful again, there's that same male competition for Wycherley again. So they all start to come around Wycherley and they all want to dance with her, right? And they're all laughing, thinking this is absolutely hysterical until they bump into the table and knock over all the water. Okay, so they've been asking Heidegger throughout this whole thing, okay, to keep refilling the glasses, right? It's almost as if they're drunk, okay? And he does keep refilling the glasses and they're super, super young. Meanwhile, as they are dancing, the mirror is still illustrating them as being old. Okay, so there's this group of 4 people, right? These old men, they're white-haired. Widow Wycherley is so frail, and there's this foolishness about them. These old people are dancing around, pushing each other away for Widow Wycherley, and it's mirroring and illustrating the foolishness of the situation that they don't conceptualize at all. Okay, they just see them as themselves as young and youthful again. So when they lose the water, and it falls onto the floor, obviously so does the rose. And this butterfly that was dead gets the water, it flies up from the water, right? And Heidegger picks up the rose. And again, we saw this sense of nostalgia at the beginning, but then we see this transformation of acceptance, okay? And he kisses the rose and he says, I still love it even though it's old and decrepit and so on and so forth, excuse me. So we see this acceptance in Heidegger from the rose, whereas this motley crew doesn't learn anything, right? Again, Wycherley is whining that she's going to be ugly for eternity. So instead, they end up traveling to the southern tip of Florida, which is where the Fountain of Youth supposedly is, to obtain more water, okay? And the water is symbolic. Okay, it's symbolic of this youth and, no offense, the foolishness attached to being youthful, okay? But the other question to be asked here too is it only something for the young, or was there some foolishness with Heidegger and these 4 specimens, as he calls them? Even at the beginning, he says that these specimens couldn't be chosen any better, right? Because of these flaws. So is his goal to really see if they become young again? Or is his goal to see if they'll change? And do they? Does Heidegger change? The other thing to keep in mind too, when we have this mirror, as I said, the mirror shows the old souls that have died at Heidegger's hands. So it does make us as the readers wonder if he feels guilt for all of that, especially since there's that skeleton in the closet. I don't even want to know whose skeleton that is, okay? And even though these 4 specimens aren't perfect, Heidegger's not perfect either, okay? And it makes us as the readers wonder too, has he grown morally through this process? Or is he still the same, just like these 4 characters, okay? So those are some questions I just want to throw at you before you fill out your discussion board. So your discussion board question that you're going to answer is, what does this story tell us about human nature? What message or theme is Hawthorne aiming to convey? How does he convey this message? So again, think symbols, think the allegory, things like that. Maybe you use setting, really whatever you feel is the right way to do that. Your response is going to include 2 pieces of evidence from the text, okay? It has to be properly cited. So author's last name and page number. Once you submit your discussion board post, you're gonna find 2 other posts, one you agree with and one that you very politely and diplomatically disagree with, okay? And then that will be, I'm probably gonna make that a homework grade, I haven't quite decided yet. And then we only have to read Young Goodman Brown. That's our last piece of the Gothic literature unit. So you are going to read that tonight for homework, all right? I think I mentioned this yesterday. We are going to start the Scarlet Letter. So please upload that on your iPad, or if you want to order it through Amazon, whatever. But we are going to be starting that next week. So you need it by Monday. Since we're coming to the end of our Gothic literature unit, that means it's time for our test, okay? I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't know how to assess this right now. So the earliest our assessment is going to be is next Monday. I have a feeling I'm going to be sticking to next Monday. There will not be a study guide, mainly because you have all the resources you need at home. But you are going to be submitting your test through turnitin.com, so I can make sure that you haven't used any online sources. Okay, you can use my lectures, you can use the text, and that's pretty much all you can use, all right? So that's going to be on Monday. And then the other thing, Friday, I am hoping we can all Zoom. I have not used it yet, so I'm just trying to get myself familiar with it before I actually use it. But I just want to check in and see how everybody's doing, what you're thinking of this experience so far, what's working, what's not working. And then it's not going to be very long, just because Friday you're supposed to have a half day anyways, and it's only going to be 20-minute classes. So I'm not going to keep you all too long on Friday, okay? So anyway, I know it's a long spiel. Thank you for bearing with me. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out. But in the meantime, stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe, stay sane. Talk to you later, Saints.